Hello students. Our lecture today, of course I want you to be taking Cornell notes. And just so you're aware, this PowerPoint happens to have a lot of text on it. My expectation is not that you write down everything that's on the PowerPoint. Rather, I would like for you just to kind of get the main ideas down, so either the things that I'm saying or just kind of synthesize the main information from the slides. Okay, so the lecture today is about ecosystem services, which means what the ecosystem does for humans. So the visual here gives a lot of different examples that we are going to go over more in depth as we get rolling. So first of all, we need to talk a little bit about extinction. Since humans have been around, and especially in the modern era, so like the last 200 to 500 years, more and more species have become extinct. So the figures you see here say that species are becoming extinct at 100 to even 1,000 times faster than they were before modern human civilizations were around. So this is a big concern. That's a really high number of animals going extinct, and they predict that this could be even up to 10,000 times the baseline rate in the next 100 years. So the little graph shows you a bunch of different extinctions that have happened. So extinctions, happen naturally in the world, but the big deal with this one is that the current extinction going on, so meaning lots of animals going extinct in this time period, we think it's because of humans. That just feels wrong. It doesn't feel quite natural if animals are going extinct because we are on this earth. So the things humans are doing that are causing animals to go extinct would be things like destroying habitats. So, a lot of wetlands are near the coast where we would love to build nice properties. So we've been filling in wetlands, which takes away a lot of habitats for organisms. We've also been taking a lot of grasslands, like the middle of the United States, and converting them into farmlands so we can get our crops. But that, again, it destroys an ecosystem, and it's an entire biome that's almost completely gone. Similar to forests, about rainforests and also just deciduous forest. They are being cut down to clear the way for urban areas, which means like cities. And finally, just pollution. So, most things that humans do pollute. The picture at the bottom of your screen shows a landfill, so a whole bunch of trash that, of course, is polluting the surrounding environment and destroying animals' habitats and making it hard for them to live. So I just want to talk really quickly about what are endangered, extinct, and threatened species because they are important in telling us how healthy our ecosystems are. So extinct species mean that there are no known members of this species left, so there's not a single one of these organisms left. Examples would be like the dinosaurs. There aren't any dinosaurs left, so we think of them as extinct. More recently, other animals are going extinct, like you might have heard of the dodo bird, the carrier pigeon, things like that have gone extinct due to human activity. Endangered species would be the next level up. Endangered means that there are just a few members of that species left, which means they could soon become extinct unless we change something. So for example, a lot of big cats are currently endangered species, and there's one particular species of tiger that there's only 60 tigers left of that species. So they're very close to extinction, and it's very unlikely that they will be able to regain their population naturally. They'll need some human help, and humans will have to intervene in order to restore their habitats. And then the third level is a threatened species, or you might hear it called a vulnerable species. That means that their numbers are low, but they're not low enough to be considered an immediate danger for extinction. So they still have enough members to survive, but they're kind of trending towards losing their population, so they're still the species we want to worry about. So why we should care about species going extinct? Humans kind of live in their own world, and kind of my main goal is to just open your eyes as to how, it may not seem like a tiger affects my life, but in actuality, as you know, all of our ecosystems are balanced together, and so if you remove one thing from an ecosystem, it affects everything. So that's like we've been talking about with food webs. Something similar is going on. If we make a species go extinct, then it's going to have far-reaching effects. So here's the top 4 reasons why scientists think that we should care about endangered and extinct species. And this is something that, like, people might pitch to, like, Congress, senators, people who could make changes. These are some of the arguments that they might use. So one is that many people just believe that animals have a right to be on this planet. Plants have a right to be on this planet, right? Like, there's no reason that human lives should be valued over animal lives. So lots of people believe that. You might think of it as kind of like a hippie way of thinking of things, like protect the animals. So that argument may or may not work for some people, but it is a big argument about what is ethically okay. Are we allowed to be killing off these species? The next argument is that it's going to take 5 to 10 million years to restore the amount of species that we had before this extinction started. And that number is really hard to comprehend, and so it's really easy to be like, well, that's definitely not in my lifetime, not even in my children's lifetime, so it's hard to really feel like you care about that kind of thing. But it is a big deal. I mean, that's a long time it's going to take to recover, if we can even recover. Thirdly, and this is where it starts to get more important to more people, is that all animal species and plant species provide resources and services that humans depend on. And so a lot of the things that we take for granted wouldn't be possible without plants and animals. For example, all of the food that we eat came from plants that had to have been pollinated. So we would depend on insects and birds for pollinating plants and making sure that they can grow and put food on our table. Similarly, birds are big for pest control. They eat small bugs, which could destroy our crops. They're also just, a nuisance. And so without birds, the pests might destroy all of our crops, and they'd be kind of everywhere. And so, these are just some ways that, like, if we let species go extinct, then things are going to get really challenging for us, and it's going to start affecting us. And then this last reason is related, and that's that many species contribute economic services, meaning it would cost money for them to go extinct, right? Like, we take advantage of a lot of things in nature and sell it. So things like food, like people make profit off of food, and if plants and animals are no longer around to be providing that food, we're going to lose not only food, but lose our money from that. There's some more examples that we're going to talk about in just a second. So those last 2 things that I were talking about are called ecosystem services. The best definition I have for you is that ecosystem services are the benefits that humans get from ecosystems. So how we take advantage of ecosystems and how we depend on them. So here's where the PowerPoint gets really wordy. You definitely don't have to write down everything on the slide, but make sure you kind of focus on these bolded words. They're the big ideas. So these are all examples of ecosystem services. The top example and the one that's probably easiest to understand is food, right? We get a lot of food from our ecosystem. So all the plants we eat, we eat a lot of animals too. These are all services that the ecosystem has provided. They've provided food for us. Next is raw materials, so things like trees that we use for construction. They make our tables, they make our houses. And so without them, where would we live? Another thing that you might not have heard of before is fresh water. A lot of ecosystems play a role in purifying our water. So as water goes through the water cycle, and evaporates and then rains and gets soaked up by trees and such, that is a purifying process for water, and without that, our water would not be drinkable. And the last one on here is medicinal resources. So we get a lot of our medicine from natural sources, specifically plants, and there's some examples on this next slide. So here you can see 6 different examples of plants that are used for medicine. So that's a service that the ecosystem is providing us, and that's a service that we want to protect. We don't want these species to go extinct, because then we'd lose access to these resources that we've been using to cure people of certain diseases and to try and ease their pain. 2 other ecosystem services. One is tourism, And so that one might sound kind of funny, but it doesn't if you're living in a place like the rainforest, where people love to go to the rainforest and really, visit it for its beauty, and they want to see, exotic species of plants and animals, and that brings a lot of money into their economy. And so, as we start cutting down rainforest, we're depriving those economies of the tourism that they would normally get. And so that's kind of a big deal if you live in one of those places. And the last one might sound kind of funny, but it is a big deal for people that a lot of people think of, nature as a very spiritual, meditative place. They'll go on nature walks, or they'll spend a few days, even camping. You go out to rest and relax in nature. And so as we are contributing to these extinctions, we're losing the opportunity for something like that, this like spiritual experience. Here's just an example. This is an endangered species. It's a macaw, so it's a really brightly colored bird that might live in something like a rainforest. And a lot of people might travel to a rainforest and bring their binoculars and they go bird watching. And as more and more of these species go extinct because of this human activity, then less people will be visiting those places, and so those places will receive less money, and they'll really struggle to keep their society functioning. So a huge example I want to talk about of an ecosystem service has to do with honeybees. And Farmer Barry talked a little bit about this, but we just wanted to bring it up again. So honeybees provide the service of pollinating plants. So they are responsible for pollinating 80% of insect-pollinated plants. And these plants happen to be about 1/3 of the food that we eat as humans. So about 1/3 of our food depends directly on these honeybees pollinating our plants. However, in 2006, 30% of those bees disappeared. They died off. People aren't really sure exactly what happened, but we know that they aren't around anymore. And that was, almost 10 years ago now. They haven't recovered, and even a lot of people are saying that their populations are still declining. They're still dying off. And we're not exactly sure why this is happening, but we are pretty confident that it's due to human activity. So maybe it's pesticides that we're using on our crops. As we use more pesticides, maybe it's killing good insects like bees. Maybe they got a parasite. So one thing I didn't realize, but we actually take a lot of our bees and we ship them to other countries to help pollinate their plants. And if they were to pick up a parasite there and then come back to our country, that's infected all of our bees too. They could get viruses, fungi, bacteria. Some people even think maybe our cell phones are interfering with their internal GPS systems. Whatever it is, we're not sure, but this is a huge service that they provide us that they will no longer be able to provide because of our human activity. Something is affecting them and taking away this service. Okay, so the main ideas, you don't have to write them down. This is just to kind of summarize. 1, we as humans are greatly increasing the extinction of wild species. We're killing off a lot of animals through our activities. And 2, we should stop. We should stop doing this because when we are causing species to go extinct, it actually comes back to affect us. So we no longer get those ecosystem services that they're providing us, both ecologically, like pollination, and economically, like we're losing money if we continue to lose more animals. And like ethically, we should probably just stop killing animals. So that's easier said than done, but that's just kind of a big idea of today, of why we should continue to protect animal species. All right, thank you, and see you in class.